All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're getting into the heads of those chaotic, frustrating, and, let's be honest, sometimes hilarious couples you see on screen. We're gonna figure out why some characters seem totally addicted to drama, and we'll do it using a really cool psychological tool.
You know that feeling when you're watching a movie and you just want to grab the characters and shake them? Like, why are you doing this to yourselves? It feels so random, so self-destructive. But what if I told you there's actually a predictable system behind all that madness?
So to really get to the bottom of this, we're gonna use the perfect case study, a fictional movie we're calling The Drama, and the explosive relationship between Zendaya's and Robert Pattinson's characters. Oh, it is absolutely perfect for what we're about to unpack.
Okay, first up, a recipe for drama. Let's take a look at the ingredients that make their on-screen relationship so volatile. Their whole dynamic is intense. It's a total psychological perfect storm. One minute, they're completely connected, and the next, they're pushing each other's buttons in the most destructive way possible. And you're just left wondering, why? Well, believe it or not, there's a hidden logic to it.
So how do we find that logic? Well, that brings us to our next section, meet your inner family. The key to understanding all this chaos is a fascinating way of looking at the mind. It's time to meet the family that's living inside all of our heads.
It's a framework called Internal Family Systems, or IFS for short. And the big idea here is that your mind isn't just one single thing. Nope, it's more like a collection of different parts, almost like a family or a committee inside you. Each part has its own job, its own feelings, and it's all organized around this core, essential you, the self. So this basically breaks down our inner world into three main types of parts. First, you've got your managers. These are the planners, the strategists. They work really hard to keep you safe and in control so you don't feel pain. Then you have the firefighters. These are the first responders. When emotional pain flares up, they jump in to put out the fire with really impulsive, often reckless actions. And finally, the exiles. These are the most vulnerable parts of us. They hold our oldest wounds, our fears, our shame. And really, both the managers and the firefighters are just trying to keep these exiles locked away so we don't have to feel that pain.
All right, so Section 3, the manager versus the firefighter. This is where the theory really comes to life. Because in The Drama, the whole conflict is a classic showdown between these two very different kinds of protectors. So on Team Zendaya, her character system is run by a manager part. It is all about controlling everything, keeping up that perfect appearance, and avoiding any kind of judgment. Then you've got Team Pattinson, and his character is driven by a classic firefighter. The second he feels hurt, his gut reaction is to just burn everything to the ground to make the feeling stop. They have completely opposite strategies for dealing with pain. Let's zoom in on Zendaya's character for a second. Her manager is working overtime, desperately trying to control the relationship and make everything look perfect. But why? Well, it's protecting a very young, vulnerable part, an exile, that is terrified of being abandoned or seen as not good enough. So anytime her partner's chaos threatens that control, her whole inner system just freaks out. And then there's Pattinson. His system is pure firefighter. The moment he feels that flicker of emotional pain, his strategy isn't to manage it, it's to create a massive distraction. He'll use biting sarcasm, self-sabotage, anything to create enough chaos to put out that internal fire. It's a really misguided attempt to feel better that, of course, just makes everything worse. So what happens when you smash these two internal systems together? Well, that's where you get the movie's signature dark humor. That's our next section, the comedy of conflict. This quote absolutely nails it. See, their fights aren't really between Zendaya and Robert Pattinson as whole people. It's a dance, or maybe more like a boxing match, between her hyper-controlling manager and his out-of-control firefighter. And there's actually a name for this dynamic in IFS. It's called polarization. It's this vicious cycle where one person's extreme part triggers the other person's extreme part, which then triggers the first person's part even more. They just get locked in this awful feedback loop. Let's just walk through their cycle step by step. 1. His firefighter acts out to numb some pain. 2. Her manager sees the chaos and clamps down hard to regain control. 3. He feels totally suffocated by her control, which triggers his own fears. And 4. To escape that feeling, his firefighter explodes with even more chaotic energy. And boom, we're right back at the beginning, only this time it's even worse. And that's the thing. The comedy for us, the audience, is watching how absurd and irrational their behavior is. But the tragedy underneath it all is that these are just their protective parts, completely running the show, trying desperately to shield these deep wounds that neither of them has any idea how to actually heal. So, is there any hope? Are they just doomed to repeat this cycle forever? Well, according to IFS, there is a way out. And that brings us to Section 4, leading from the self. It's all about getting our parts to trust us enough to step back from the driver's seat. Now, this is so important. The goal is not to get rid of your manager or your firefighter. You can't just fire them. They're trying to help in their own misguided way. The real goal is to access the true you at the center of it all, what IFS calls the core self. And the self has these amazing inherent qualities. IFS calls them the 8 C's. So when we're connected to ourself, we naturally have access to things like calm, clarity, compassion, and curiosity. You can think of the self as the wise, calm, loving adult in the room of your mind, the one who can listen to all the panicking parts without getting swept away. Just imagine for a second, what would happen if, instead of her manager judging his chaos, Zendaya's character could get curious from herself and just wonder, wow, what is he so scared of right now? And what if, instead of his firefighter lashing out, Pattinson's character could get curious about her need for control? The whole game would change. Because that's the ultimate takeaway here, real connection, real healing communication. It doesn't happen when a manager is yelling at a firefighter. It happens when two people can show up and connect from that core, compassionate self. That's how you finally break the cycle. So I'll leave you with a question to take with you. As you go about your day, just kind of notice, which part of you is running the show right now? Is it your inner manager trying to plan and control everything? Is it a firefighter looking for a distraction? Or can you feel that calm, curious self at your core? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.